Hi, welcome to Forest Hill Cemetery in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm Bob Gough, retired history professor at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and with me is Greg Kocken, the head of the Special Collections Department and the University Archivist in the McIntyre Library at UW-Eau Claire. Now, as some of you probably know, last summer Greg and I gave walking tours of Forest Hill. And we're going to do that again this summer, completely new tours. And they'll be on August 4th and August the 11th in the evening. You can sign up for them now at the Chippewa Valley Museum's website. Now, the purpose of this little segment today is to give a quick introduction to Forest Hill and to some of the iconographic features on its markers. Now, last summer, we walked around the northern end of the cemetery, the oldest part of the cemetery, which has a lot of the features of the country cemetery movement in the United States in the 19th century, which focused on taking advantage of natural features in the landscape to make death seem more natural. And that older part of the cemetery was pretty much filled up by about 1910, as far as where the chapel is now. But the city went ahead and purchased the land between 1910 and 1920 for what is the rest of the cemetery today. The tours this summer will focus on the next section to the south, over my left shoulder here, and where most of the burials are from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. After 1935, the city required that essentially all burials in Forest Hill be in horizontal markers. So the southern end of the cemetery looks a lot different than the oldest part of the cemetery. The landscape itself is flat, and most of the markers are flat to the ground. But there are still some interesting features to the cemetery in this more southern section. In section I, you can see behind me, slopes upward, what the geologists call a shoulder of a hill. And even though the burial markers are flat, they stand out very nicely, particularly when the sun hits them. Also in section N, over my right-hand shoulder, they do allow vertical markers, which are right up against the woods and do suggest some of the feeling of the country cemetery. Finally, at the southern end of the cemetery is the infamous 7 bumps, which is now used for sledding and ski boarding, but it fit very nicely into the idea of a country cemetery because they were designed to be for the living as well as for the dead. And the recreational component of the country cemeteries was very important to the founders. I'm sure I'm not the only person who, when landing at the bottom of 7 bumps, thought he was going to be taken next door to the cemetery rather than to Sacred Heart Hospital.